I'm going to be talking about Lucy Letby again and the culture of blame that the NHS fosters to anyone that they've got their claws into, basically. There is a lot wrong with the NHS, and when an organisation is going wrong or a society is going wrong, there is always this tendency for it to start looking for scapegoats. You might say that's what's happening with our government right now. They can't handle things, so they're looking for scapegoats. But let's stick to Lucy Letby, should we? I'm Granniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. So look, I'm not saying that Letby is innocent. I cannot know that. What I am saying is that the way the law is set up in this country, and still for the time being, this is how it is, you aren't convicted on suspicions. You have to be convicted on evidence that puts guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Now, I did another video on Letby a while ago, and I just used one case. And in my opinion, of course I'm not a lawyer, but in my opinion, that one case would not have been sufficient for me to say she was guilty beyond reasonable doubt. I don't know about the others. I went into just one of them. And if I'd have been on the jury, I'd have said, there's a reasonable doubt about that. It's definitely not beyond this. So I'm going to tell you some more stuff, and I'm going to be talking about the NHS culture as well. It's not just Letby here. All right, so this was in the 23rd of November Telegraph, and the headline is Lucy Letby Hospital outlines 15 reasons why baby killer was innocent. Now, as I said to somebody else in a comment under my video, would you have her looking after your children? And my answer to that would be no. No. I mean, she has been tarred with that brush now. I mean, whatever happens to her, she's never going to be able to live a normal life from now on, which is a terrible thing in itself, in prison or out. But even though there's always that suspicion, there is also the suspicion that the country may have imprisoned an innocent person, a dedicated nurse who felt guilty that she couldn't save the baby she was looking after. And that's an equally valid story. Of course, this present government is not that concerned about who's guilty or innocent, are they? So, a neonatal ward manager of Lucy Letby's hospital outlined 15 reasons why the nurse could not be to blame for the deaths and collapse of babies, it has emerged. And what I want to know is, was this presented in court? It doesn't look like it was, but yeah, I mean, it was a very long court case. It may have been, and I just didn't hear about it. Documents released for the Thirlwall inquiry, which is examining how incidents at the Countess of Chester could have been prevented, show that Arian Pole, Letby's boss, was unconvinced by allegations against the nurse. Of course, as has been noted, a boss might wish to say that an employee is innocent simply because it reflects badly on the boss if the employee is guilty. But she must know something. Arian Pole distributed a document entitled Neonatal Unit Review 2015 to 2016 in May 2016, which gave 15 reasons why it was unlikely there was a baby killer on the ward. There is no evidence whatsoever against LL, other than coincidence, she wrote. LL works full-time and has the qualification in speciality That's known as QIS apparently. She is therefore more likely to be looking after the sickest infant on the unit. LL is also available herself to work overtime when the acuity of the unit is over capacity. The neonatal ward manager went on to point out that the spike in deaths could be accounted for by failings on the unit and elsewhere, as well as health problems with the babies. Miss Powell argued that 2 of the babies were diagnosed with congenital pneumonia. That's they were born with pneumonia. 2 had necrotizing enterocolitis. Yeah, that's serious degeneration of their digestive organs. A dangerous complication for, necrotizing enterocolitis, which means that by the looks of necrotizing, it looked like their digestive organs were actually, parts of them were rotting, which is a dangerous complication for preterm infants. I'd say it's a dangerous complication for anyone. One mother had a maternal syndrome, and one baby had overwhelming sepsis. Sepsis. Goodness me, they can't manage to deal with that with adults. Some of the issues were related to midwifery problems, she added, which means it started when the baby was born with the nurses that delivered the baby. The Cheshire and Mersey Transport Service have been involved in a few of these mortalities, and they may have survived if the service were running adequately. So I suppose what this means is the babies were born elsewhere and they were not rushed to the neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester straight away. There was a long delay. I think that's what she's saying there. She concluded, of all the post results, there was no evidence of foul play. Now, this is the supervisor of the ward where Letby was working. Ms. Powell also pointed out that 2 doctors, Dr. John Gibbs and Dr. Dave Harkness, had been present at several of the incidents. Yeah, well, she's not blaming them. She's just saying there were other people there as well. The problem with the police is once, and this has been known on many previous occasions, once they have an idea that somebody is guilty, they will do anything they can to skew the evidence to make that person look even more guilty. And we all know they do this. Since the verdicts, many scientists, statisticians, doctors and nurses have come forward to question the evidence given to the jury, who were not told about several reviews undertaken by the hospital to find out what was causing the spike in deaths. They largely pointed to overcrowding, suboptimal care, understaffing and transfer issues. So the hospitals themselves, the hospital was later acknowledged to be running at overcapacity and understaffing, and deaths stopped after Letby was taken off the ward at the same time as the hospital stopped taking the most serious patients and moving them on to a better qualified department, and also more nurses were engaged. So that doesn't prove anything either. I keep saying, I'm not saying Letby is guilty or innocent. What I am saying is that on the evidence that I've seen, she is not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. In our view, a document released this week by the inquiry from Stephen Cross, the Director of Corporate and Legal Affairs at the hospital, also showed that the Countess of Chester contacted police reluctantly in 2017. In our view, there's no evidence to justify a criminal investigation, he wrote. However, in the spirit of openness and transparency, the matter is being reported to the police, having regard to the fact that a number of consultant paediatricians are not satisfied with the very thorough investigations and reviews. 12 of the deaths have been subject to post-mortem, but there have been no suspicious findings. a secondary review of 4 deaths by pathologists at Alder Hey Children's Hospital did not raise any concerns regarding unnatural causes. So, yeah, I mean, that's one thing. Now, I want to talk about something else. And this is about whistleblowers. This is an article, well, you can see, I started collecting these articles in May. And when people said in my previous video about Letby, for sure she's guilty, you know, and I should not question that. It's possible that I am more suspicious because I've been reading up around the whole issue of the way the NHS organises itself. So there's this one here. This is from the 16th of May 2024. The NHS demanded fingerprints from staff as it hunted for a whistleblower. So somebody was, in that case, this person here, was saying there was something wrong. And instead of just trying to deal with something wrong, they called in the police to try and identify who was saying this. Now, I want to tell you, I am at the moment in contact with a doctor who wanted to warn me about something else that's going on, nothing to do with Letby. But this doctor has found some serious lapses in the NHS and dare not speak out about them because he or she knows that what is being said will just lose them their job. Yeah, I don't want to give the sex of the doctor either. I don't want any chance of that person being tracked down because it looks very much like the NHS spends a lot of time shooting messengers. Patricia Mills told the Telegraph she became unwell as a result of the action taken by West Suffolk NHS Trust. NHS bosses hunting a whistleblower demanded fingerprints from a doctor who has warned that medics don't stand a chance if they raise concerns. So you see, what happened in the Countess of Chester? It could be that there were some of the staff who saw things that were wrong and didn't dare report them because they were worried about what happened to this doctor. Obviously, this doctor here is not an unusual case. Patricia Mills, a consultant in anaesthetics. By the way, a consultant is a very high specialist rank of doctor. I don't know what you'd call it in America. But yeah, it's the top specialist. You're aware of the show House, aren't you? Well, he is a consultant. If he were in a British hospital, he'd be a consultant. Patricia Mills, a consultant in anaesthetics and critical care, said she would never be the same again after being hounded by managers who also demanded handwriting samples from her. And it says here, this is from May, doctors want the government to create a new criminal offence of causing detriment to whistleblowers after accusing NHS managers of targeting them for daring to speak up. So you see, here you have the medical staff, and they are being targeted by the bureaucrats who don't like doctors to complain and mess up their nice, neat figures. The Telegraph has highlighted concerns raised by more than 50 doctors who say they were targeted after sounding the alarm about upwards of 170 patient deaths and almost 700 patient harms, although the true number of avoidable deaths has been described as astronomical by one consultant. Now, why is this happening? It could be any one or combination of many things. Understaffing, lack supervision, lack of certain medicines. I really don't know. But when doctors are complaining about it and then the bureaucrats in the offices upstairs demand to find out who it is who's complained and start fingerprinting the consultants. Yeah, I'd say there's something really wrong there. And this was an article saying the 4-step playbook the NHS uses to break whistleblowers. NHS managers use a playbook of tactics to silence whistleblowers that's designed to break you, according to doctors who've tried to raise patient safety concerns. A Telegraph investigation has found so many similarities in the way different NHS trusts and clinics deal with whistleblowers that many doctors believe the problem is systemic. The doctors complain of bullying, harassment, both from managers and colleagues, so it's other doctors as well, which they claim creates a culture of cover-up. And indeed, in the Letby case, we've all heard about the plumber, haven't we? He said that the plumbing was an incredible mess in that ward, and that there was leakage from the pipes, from a sewage pipe from another ward coming into that ward. So why wasn't there a huge fuss about this before? Well, probably because the doctors and the staff were worried about being caught in one of these whistleblowing situations. Law firms and private investigators are also often brought in to investigate the whistleblower, who is then told they're being suspended. And then there are years of internal investigations, disciplinary hearings and legal battles. Many doctors who've decades of expertise in their field and distinguished careers are reduced to depression and suicidal thoughts by the situation they find themselves in. Some sign non-disclosure agreements, enabling them to return to work if they promise to keep their mouths shut. Others try to fight back through the High Court or employment tribunals, and others leave the NHS for private hospitals or quit the medical profession altogether. So, of the 52 medics interviewed by this newspaper, that is the Telegraph, 41 said their own conduct was put under investigation. They were all subjected to counter-allegations after raising concerns. This doctor here, Jasna Makanovic, a consultant hepatologist, raised concerns about dialysis treatment, but herself was put under investigation. This fellow here, Martin Pittman, was told that NHS trusts want to absolutely destroy you. This Pittman, a consultant obstetrician and gynaecologist at Hampshire hospitals, was placed under an MHPS probe after he raised concerns about maternity care. So you see, he said there was something wrong. He said he was warned by his British Medical Association representative that it would take between 6 and 18 months. He said the BMA rep told him that trusts deliberately extend it because they want to break you. They want to absolutely destroy you. In the event, the MHPS took 16 months and he wasn't dismissed for a further 2.5 years. A spokesman for Hampshire hospitals said independent external investigations were commissioned at Mr. Pittman's request to ensure Mr. Pittman was treated fairly. How about this guy? Serith Colbert, a maxillofacial surgeon, said the process keeps you walking on the cliff edge, threatening to push you over. Now look, these are very highly qualified surgeons and specialists. And this country, God knows, has few enough of them. And the fact that we're binning these because the system causes them to be binned, that's just making the situation worse, isn't it? So step one is what did they say? Step one, investigate the whistleblower. And then step two, bully and intimidate. Of the 52 medics interviewed by the Telegraph, 45 reported being the victims of victimisation, harassment, discrimination, bullying or intimidation. 5 were victims of vexatious referrals to the police, to the social services and to HM Revenue and Customs. That's the internal, what do you call it? Internal Revenue Service for Americans. With each found to have no case to answer. So 52 medics interviewed by the Telegraph, 45 of them were reported for vexatiously reported for crimes they didn't commit. And of course, they had to fight their way through that, however innocent they were. They wouldn't know if they would, be found guilty or innocent. One such case involved Dr. Rosalind Ransom, a medical director of the Isle of Man's Health Service, when it was directly run by the Department of Health and Social Care. I don't know, maybe it isn't now. She was fired after blowing the whistle about clinical negligence. She later took her case to an employment tribunal, where the tribunal judge found she'd been subjected to a pattern of disgraceful behaviour designed to make an employee feel not wanted. She was moved from her normal office into what was described as a box room with a broken chair and no computer screen or space for her personal assistant, and her belongings were put into storage. Oh, goodness me. And the person most responsible for this disgraceful behaviour, it says here, was her former boss, Catherine Magson, who at the time was the chief executive of the Isle of Man's Health Service. The judge found Miss Magson spread unfounded and demonstrably incorrect allegations that Dr. Ransom was burnt out. Anyway, I believe Dr. Ransom was ended up with a substantial compensation, which of course came out of the pockets of the poor bloody Manx taxpayers, I suppose. All right, step 3, weaponised General Medical Council referrals. A referral, so you keep referring these people to the GMC. 9 of the doctors claimed to have been threatened with a referral to the GMC. When you get referred to them, if they find against you, you're struck off. You've lost your means of earning a living. You end up, being employed by a drug company selling aspirin, terrible. Dr. Peter Duffy, who won his employment tribunal against University Hospitals and Morecambe Bay, was anonymously referred to the GMC a total of 7 times. I mean, as I'm saying, these aren't just lowly nurses like Lucy Letby was. These are big wheels and highly qualified medical people. Now, highly qualified medical people can also be total bastards and incompetent. But it seems like there's quite a pattern here. So there's this guy called Tristan Roycer, a consultant ophthalmic surgeon who found himself sacked on the spot in 2017 and referred to the GMC the same day. The doctor had resorted to using an untrained staff member to assist in surgery as a last resort to save a patient's eyesight after, he claims, nursing staff refused to help. I don't know why that happened, why they might have refused to help. It could have been their tea break, or it could have been because they thought it wasn't going to work and they'd be sued. Who knows? And had raised concerns. He claims nursing staff refused to help, and he had raised concerns about this lack of assistance. Mr. Roycer, you have to remember, in America, that would be Dr. Roycer. In Britain, when you get beyond a certain level, you go to Mr. again. It's a practice that was adapted from the ship's surgeon. A ship's surgeon was generally a barber and not a doctor. And he did the hair cutting and also the operations on ships. And he was a mister. because he wasn't a doctor. And that's where the idea in Britain to call a surgeon Mr. comes from. Mr. Reuser was found to have been unfairly dismissed, and the judge at an employment tribunal ruled that his employer should have made clear to the GMC that he was a whistleblower. You see, they reported him, but they didn't say why. So, look, I've been reading this stuff. That's why I was a bit suspicious about the Letby case. Again, because I'm suspicious of the police. I think we're all suspicious of the police now. And I'm a bit suspicious of the hospital, because it turns out that irrespective of Letby, there was a lot of bad practice going on at the hospital. It was only after Letby was taken off the job that they actually started to change their methods. They started, for instance, the sickest kids were sent to a more specialist unit, as I said. This week, Dr. Stephen Breary, a paediatric consultant at the hospital, gave evidence at the inquiry and was asked about Ms. Pole's list of reasons. Dr. Breary was one of the first doctors to raise concerns about Letby and called for her to be removed from the unit. He said he felt Miss Pole had strayed into areas of expertise that were beyond her training. Saying there's no evidence whatsoever other than coincidence overlooks the timing of the deaths and the sudden unexpected nature of the deaths, he told the hearing, the increase in numbers above anything we'd expected. So, you see, there are arguments on both sides. I'm not saying it's all cut and dried. But what I am saying is there is a doubt. There definitely is a reasonable doubt. And looking at the way hospitals are organised now, I'd say we have to worry about this conviction. Anyway, yeah, that's it. I thought I'd bring this up. I mean, whatever happens, I suspect that Ms. Letby is probably safer in prison than out right now. I don't know what would become of her if they suddenly said, all right, you're innocent, you can go. Or rather, all right, we can't prove anything, you can go. I have no idea what will happen to her. I don't know where in the world she could find a place or a job. It's a very sad case altogether. But I believe that the police have a case to answer, as does the Countess of Chester Hospital. OK, right, till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.